Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Let's make sure that this is working. Oh dear. There we go. Yes. All right. What I wanted to chat with you about this morning. Hello, Robin. How are you? Hope you're well and you're traveling. All right. What I wanted to chat with you about this morning is some things that we've kind of all got to be really aware of at the moment. I think particularly at the minute, there is a lot of change happening. There is, particularly here in Australia. So in Victoria, we've got a whole lot of stuff happening around COVID restrictions easing throughout this week. We've got kids going back to school next week. We've got New South Wales. You've got restrictions that are easing, kids going back to school. There's a whole lot of stuff happening at the minute. And I think one of the things that we all know, but I think we haven't really experienced it in this sort of turmoil at the minute, is that there is a lot of change. And change can be really scary, and change can be hard, and it's not necessarily that it's new stuff that's happening, but a lot of this thing that I've been talking to a lot of people about, my kids about, I've heard from other people's children as well as the adults, is there's a whole lot of tension. And this is around, like I said, a whole lot of change happening. And the same thing happens in business. When you want to start shifting and changing things, there's often this tension between where you are now and where you're going. And it can be very, sometimes it can be quite fluid, particularly if it's something that you have control over. When it becomes hard, that tension can become very tough and almost like there's all of this resistance because you might feel like you don't have control. So hi, my name is Nicola and I am a recovering control freak. I find it very, very hard sometimes to deal with things that I'm not in control of. And so I think that some of the things that are really helpful and really important actually for people to understand, hey Carmen, is that change happens all the time. And I think one of the quotes that comes up for me, that's come up for me today, is one of Brené Brown's, which is around but the story that she tells about the fear of foreboding joy, and this is where we can have something that's really good news come to us, and this could be good things in terms of maybe opening up. It could be around an event that's happening that you're excited about. It could be about you're about to get the published copy of the book you've just written, or that you're going to go and launch all of your marketing next week and you're really excited about all of that. And there's this kind of thing like where we get excited about it, but then we often think about, well, what could go wrong? What if this happens? What if that happens? What if we get locked back down again? What if no one buys my book? What if no one responds to my marketing? What if that event gets cancelled? What if the flights get cancelled? What if? And this is almost that the story that Brené Brown talks about is like the waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I think one of the things that we've got to come back to is remembering that as humans, we're faced with change all the time. It is our attitude that does really, it's our attitude that impacts our experience, right? So it's our attitude that impacts our experience. I'm not sure how to say your name. Is it Nathi? Working on launching a podcast. What if no one listens to me, right? And I bet congratulations. First of all, that is so exciting. It's actually really huge. And yeah, what if no one does listen to you? But it's our attitude to that will shape the experience, right? And I think one of the things that we like to do is kind of almost like protect ourselves and try and mitigate around it. So we try, I won't speak for you, I'll speak for me. It's like, all right, I'm going to try not to get too excited because I don't want to get disappointed. I don't want to be too optimistic because what if it all comes crashing down? I wrote my book, or my second book actually, that was published last year, and I was petrified that nobody would buy it. I was petrified that no one would read it. I'm sure the publisher felt the same. But, I was really concerned. I did it anyway. And I suppose that it's this whole thing around, well, if we allow and if we acknowledge that, all right, it's my attitude that shapes the experience, how are you going to show up? Because, let's face it, we are humans. We are living a very human experience. And if we want to focus on the fact that we're often disappointed with different things, maybe because you set your expectations too high or too low, or things don't work out how you want, it really is how you shape the languaging of your world with how you're actually going to be, how you're going to react in certain situations, in different situations. So what I thought I would do with you today is step you through a little bit about how I mitigate this. And the way that I see this is that this is a really resourceful way for me of coping. So everything is going on out there and I cannot control anything out there, right? The same as you, the same as your neighbor, the same as your colleagues, the same as your peers, the same as your clients, the same as your mentors. We cannot control what's going on out there. So what's a really resourceful strategy that we can use no matter what's going on? And the thing that I always come back to is I've got the dishwasher going off and the train going off and all things are happening in here. I hope that's not too loud and distracting for you. Sorry about that. I can't control any of that, right? I can only control my reaction to that particular situation. Case and point. So the way that I cope with this is I just ignore everything else that's going on around me and I just barrel on through. That is a little bit how I am. But one of the ways that I do this is I resort back to going, all right, what am I going to do today? What can I focus on today? And I literally almost like put the blinkers on and go, okay, so what am I going to focus on? What am I actually going to do today? How can I do something that is going to make a difference? And that might be journaling. It's certainly showing up on the coffee runs like I do with these, even if I don't feel like it most days. If I don't feel like it, I generally speaking will show up because I'm showing up for you guys. I'm not just doing it for myself, but routine is really helpful for me with being able to cope with whatever it is that's going on. So I know at 11 o'clock, most weekdays, not last Friday, I'll talk to you about that in a sec. Most weekdays, I'm just like, all right, I'm going to show up for you. What am I going to talk about? How am I going to talk about it? What's something that's really helpful? And then just bang, go off and off I go. Now, these always make me feel better. So I get something out of it. I trust you guys get something out of it. But for me, it's one of these things where it's a resourceful coping strategy. Another really resourceful coping strategy is around having control of your space. Hi, Vaughn, how are you going? So having control of your space. Hey, Debbie, how are you? Having control of your space, I think, is something that is probably not as highly regarded, perhaps, as what it could be. Not shoulds, because there's no shoulds, but certainly what it could be. And I've got one of my best friends is messaged me. She goes, oh, I'm going into my office and it's one of my happier places. It's like, yeah, that's awesome. I know for me, if my house is a shambles, which is not very often a shambles, but if my house isn't up to the aesthetically pleasing standard of mine, that gives me some sense of control of going, all right, I'm going to go and, get everything in its place. And that really helps my head. So think about, I'm going to just type some notes and I'll come and put it back into the show notes after. So what we've got is where can you create control, right? So you can create control around how you show up. You can create control around your routine. You can create control around your space. And I think the other thing, like in terms of your environment. So if your environment, and I think most people find this, if your environment is calm and aesthetically pleasing, whatever that is, whatever that means for you, however that looks for you, generally speaking, we're a lot more able to focus, hey Debbie, on whatever it is that's going on in our worlds and the things that we actually need to be focusing on. The other thing that I find really helpful is journaling. And I haven't always been, I've got a confession to make. I haven't always been a big journaler. I have been someone who will open up a computer and I can type till the cows come home. I can, I've been able to do that for years and years and years. And I guess, I used to use that as my creative dumping ground. I'm wearing my shirt today, Follow Your Intuition, which is kind of fitting actually with this particular topic. I was journaling for probably about 40 minutes before jumping on here this morning about how I want to feel. And what I did was I had my phone on, I had my Spotify playlist, which was the hits of the noughties. So there was Taylor Swift, there's Katy Perry, there's Pink. I've got all of these people singing at me in my head while I'm journeying. I'm just like, yeah, okay, cool. This is really great because I can definitely control my state. So controlling your state or influencing and changing and shifting your state is something that is so incredibly important. So with journaling, music on in my ears, writing away, doing all of the things and how I want to feel, what I want to do. So I think one of the things, so I live in Victoria in Australia, if you're not aware, we are officially coming out of lockdown, hopefully, on Friday. And it's really weird. I felt it last week as well. I'm not sure if those of you who are in Victoria, New South Wales, you might have felt like this too. It's almost like there was this subtle shift in energy around the place. And for me, I'm kind of like this morning as I'm journaling, I'm like, maybe there's some hope around being able to do some in-person events over the course of the next, perhaps the next 8 months. I'm like, oh my gosh, where am I going to go? What am I going to do? Who am I going to see? Who's going to be there? How is it going to run? And I could start to feel a bit of hope. Now, typically what we're doing when we're managing and we're trying to mitigate all of the stuff that's going on, we will often, and particularly I think in the last 12 months, many of us haven't allowed ourselves the space or the joy that comes along with hope. We watched a movie over the last couple of nights with the kids called Bird Box with Sandra Bullock in it. And it's that movie, I'm sure you might have seen it, it's where they're not allowed to open their eyes, otherwise the creatures attack them and then they suicide. So they're wandering around with, when they're outside, they've got these blindfolds on and she's got these two little kids, boy and girl. And something that was really kind of hammered home was before they went and had to do this trek through spending, 2 or 3 days on a boat, navigating the rapids and the river and everything else, there was this moment where her boyfriend was telling this story and Sandra Bullock had a go at him saying, you can't, don't tell the children that they're going to be able to play with other children. Don't tell the kids to go and climb trees because they can't freaking do that. And he said they need hope. And I thought that was a really interesting and poignant reminder because then later on in the movie, spoiler alert, later on in the movie, she said to the kids, you know what, before any of it had happened, I want you to be able to climb trees. I want you to be able to do all of this. I want you to be able to play with all of the other children and, we'll see how we can make that happen. So one of the things that we'll often do when we're faced with, I guess, adversity or we're trying to roll with change or work with change or push back against change is we don't allow ourselves permission or the space to be able to hope and dream. And I think rather than trying to be realistic and working within the boundaries of what we've got available at the minute, you're allowed to hope. The worst case scenario is that you can't do it. But it's okay to be hopeful. It's okay to be optimistic. It's actually needed and it's necessary to be able to plan. So create some timelines around what it is that you might do. And then just make sure that you've got enough resilience and behavioral flexibility that if something comes up and you can't quite do the things that you want to do, that you've got other things that you can put in place in order to mitigate it. So an example of this is the signature event that I've been running for the last few years that I love the shit out of doing, particularly in person, is called Visible Live. And as I was saying to you before, it's like, right, this morning, I'm like, I want to be able to run it. I can't see it happening before the end of the year, but certainly early next year. And I can't wait to be on location doing that somewhere. And part of me is like, oh, but we might this, that, and the other, or the states might not let us in, or whatever. I've gone, you know what? Hey, Kate, let's just dream and plan and roll with it and allow yourself the absolute sheer pleasure of hoping and dreaming. Sorry about that. Because that's where some of the magic kicks in, right? That's where some of the magic kicks in. And if you can shift your state and allow yourself to dream and allow yourself to plan, and then just have some things around. So for me, if I can't do things in the room, that's all right. We'll just shift it back to we'll do it online, and that's okay. That's the worst case scenario, and the world won't end. So allowing yourself to some strategies to be able to cope, I think, is really, really important. So that is that's my advice for you today. I hope that wherever you are and whatever you're doing, you are giving yourself permission to hope, dream, and plan. That you are allowing yourself to live even for half an hour or an hour in this really awesome and amazing potential future that you could be stepping into, that you could be working in, that you could be learning from, that you could be facilitating, that you could be doing, whatever it is. Immerse yourself in that potential, because that will impact your state. That will impact your ability to create. That will impact positively your ability to be resilient, to be creative, to be behavioral, to be flexible with your behavior, for you to be able to show up and for you to be able to influence everything that is going on around you in the world. So I trust that that's helpful. If you have any questions about this or anything else, please be sure to let me know. But otherwise, you know what you need to do. Get yourselves out there, have fun doing it, go help some people, and remember that the world is ready for your brand of awesome. I'll talk to you tomorrow.